We are just, we are delighted to have you join us today to talk about innovative trends in factory-built housing, and we have some incredible partners that we'll be introducing. But joining me today is my colleague Chris Garland, Community Development Manager here at NCST. We also have Craig Vanderlaan with Crisis Housing Solutions and Bill Wilson with SIPs, Structured Insulated Panels. And Chris is going to be providing their bio, just running through their experience and background in just a few minutes here. But I did want to say, hold on to your questions for Q&A. We definitely want to hear from you after you've seen the presentation and have questions. So please provide your questions there for us. And with that, let me bring Chris Garland up to share some background information.
Yes, thanks, Raquel. Thanks for that. And as Raquel mentioned, just so excited to have Craig and Bill joining us for today's community impact briefing. Craig Vanderlaan is the co-founder and executive director of Crisis Housing Solutions, CHS, a nonprofit 501c3. CHS was originally founded as Adopt a Hurricane Family by Craig and his wife Lisa in response to the devastation wrought by Hurricanes Katrina and Wilma in 2005. Through community collaboration, CHS has successfully assisted over 4,500 families with sustainable housing solutions. Over the years, CHS has provided foreclosure prevention services, first-time homebuyer assistance, and created their community stabilization initiative of rehabbing and selling REO properties to low and moderate income families. Today, CHS is focused on leading a community effort to create the Housing Solutions Center of Jacksonville, an innovative modular housing and research center on a 14-acre site. Active in the community, Craig has served on numerous committees, including the Broward Long-Term Recovery Coalition and as chair of the Town of Davie and City of Tarmac Affordable Housing Advisory Committees. Craig received a BA from St. Thomas University in criminal justice with a minor in economics. And also joining us today is Bill Wilson. Bill is vice president of Supreme SIPs, the manufacturer of structural insulated panels. Bill has over 30 years of experience working in areas of affordable housing as a consultant to affordable housing nonprofits, providing training programs for enterprise community partners and NeighborWorks, and was a volunteer president of an affordable housing nonprofit for 7 years. He's currently working to bring new construction techniques to affordable housing developers. So on today's call titled Innovative Trends in Factory-Built Housing Supply, Craig and Bill will speak to closing the gap between affordable housing demand and supply with multitude of solutions, including those that focus on sustainable and supportive single-family housing stock. With that, Craig, Bill, we'll turn it over to you.
Great. Chris, thank you so much. And Raquel, thank you also for your very kind introduction, and thank you for the invitation. First of all, I've got to do a shout out to the Florida Panthers, who we won our second Stanley Cup last night. So go Panthers! So what I'd like to do is I'm going to share the screen with you guys and tell you a little bit about what we're doing up in Jacksonville. Great. So this is an overview of our site. We're located at the Port of Jacksonville, and this is a 14-acre site where we're going to build both factory built. It says modular housing factory, but it's also factory built. And then we're going to have a research center that we'll share with you a little bit more later on. And Chris gave a nice little background history. There's a few things I'd like to share with you just to kind of give you an idea on how we got to where we are. So, you know, this August, it'll be our 20th anniversary. And we started working with folks that were displaced by hurricanes, both Katrina and Wilma. And that's actually when we got first into construction and building affordable housing. And that was when we did a 83 unit mobile home unit program with the town of Davie through mobile homes that we got from FEMA. Later along comes the Great Recession, and we got into housing counseling. And then we also created our community stabilization initiative, which is when we first met Raquel Reddy within CST, probably back in 2010, I think it was. JP Morgan Chase was one of those lenders that provided us with housing units, and we did 105 homes that we rehabbed and sold. And we had approached JP Morgan on an innovative idea that we'd seen over in Europe and repurposed shipping containers, and they actually funded a feasibility study for us looking at containers versus concrete block. But what we took from that feasibility study mostly was the importance of building inside a factory and not site built. So we started looking for housing factories, and that is when we found this site. And let's see. Oh, here we go. So we're located at the Port of Jacksonville. We're in historic East Side. It's a community dating back to the 1880s, a Black community that is currently in need of affordable housing and jobs. And the beauty of this side is we're going to be able to empower East Side. So we're looking at building affordable housing, whether it's site built or modular or panelized, where we anticipate employing up to about 150 folks from East Side and the surrounding communities. Site's going to be about collaboration, working with veterans, homeless reentry populations, and then the other cool part is our research center that we'll share with you a little bit more about. Let's see. Oh, here we go. All right. So a few things. This is an overview of the site. We're right at the port. We're right next door to and across the street from the largest shipping company in Florida, which is Crowley. And the part I want to speak to about this is logistics. And logistics is critical when you're looking at modular and factory built. And the beauty of this site is we have a rail spur. We are across the street from the port. And the rail spur is ideal for not only shipping product out, but for bringing materials in affordably if you can buy it by rail. And we have a 65-year, very attractive lease on this site. Our mission, build healthy communities where people live, work, and prosper. The core values we're going to focus on today are basically collaboration, inclusiveness, community. It's all about collaboration, and we'll share more with you on that as well. So I don't need to talk to you about the numbers and the lack of affordable housing. Everybody on this call knows that we have a problem. Looking down at the bottom of the screen, you know, the National Low Income Housing Coalition recently stated that every county in the US has a shortage of affordable housing. That to me is staggering. That also confirms that our country obviously has a problem with affordable housing, the lack of. The other problem that we have is a lack of innovation. You know, in 1985, I bought my parents their first color television. It was $500. It was a 19-inch color TV. Today, we can buy for $250 a screen that's got a much better picture. It has no tubes. It's also a computer. And for $250, we get a beautiful, magnificent television. The telephones that I use today, this telephone, I pay less per month for this telephone, camera, computer, video camera than people paid for their long distance calls in the 70s. So certain aspects of our life have changed. It hasn't changed in housing. Today, it's the majority of homes are stick built, they're concrete block, and that's gone on for 125 years. And our point, as is the point of many, many others, is it's time for a change. It was Henry Ford that built the first assembly line back in 1913, and that not only did it change how cars were produced, but it changed manufacturing worldwide. And that hasn't happened for housing, and it needs to. And it is happening. In Sweden, over 80% of all housing today is prefabricated, built in a factory. As you see in the numbers below, Finland, Norway, 45%, Japan, 15 to 20, Germany, 15. The United States, we're still hovering at 3 to 4%, and most of those are mobile homes, manufactured homes that you register through the Department of Motor Vehicle. Why factory built? Well, there's a savings in time, savings in material, and and time is money as well. You never have a rainy day. You have that controlled work environment. Then there's that precision of construction. You have people that can focus on certain aspects of the construction, and they get really, really good at it. And building materials, you can buy building materials for a factory much more affordably than you can site built for homes. And it's about innovation. And through a factory, you can continually work at changing and creating better ways and greater efficiencies. So the types of builds that we're looking at is, and you're going to meet Bill in just a second, structural insulated panels, repurposed shipping containers, which is where I spoke to earlier, that we're doing. And we're also looking at light gauge steel framing and any other forms of innovative housing. What you see here on the picture is the house up to the top to the left is one of Bill's homes, the SIP's home, made out of SIP panels. The one down below is with the big grouper on it. That is a shipping container that we sent over to the Bahamas for post-disaster housing after Hurricane Katrina. And then there's some coastal housing that can be built with containers and so forth. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to turn it over to Bill, so Bill can fill you in on Supreme insulated panels. Bill?
I guess if I unmute myself, you can hear me better. So what we've found in talking about the innovation is the concept of panelization allows you to build faster, cleaner, and greener, if you will. You want to click?
Greg? Oh, yes. Yeah.
So the structural insulated panel, we use magnesium oxide cement board as the two sides of the panel. The center of the panel is an extruded polystyrene foam. So MGO cement has been around for a while. It's actually what they built the Great Wall of China out of a few years ago. So it's pretty durable. And you build a sandwich, if you will, with MGO foam and MGO. And that panel becomes the exterior wall and or the roof panel for the house. And everything comes to the site cut to fit, so there's very little waste. The MGO is a very green material. When I got into this, what I learned was that Portland cement, which is what's basically used in construction, is the third largest contributor to greenhouse gases in the world. Portland cement, when it cures, off gases CO2. And worldwide, it's our third largest contributor to greenhouse gases. MgO, when it cures, it absorbs CO2. So it actually has a negative carbon footprint. From an energy efficiency point of view, I don't know how many of you understand our values, but a typical stick-built house with drywall, bad insulation, hardy board siding will give you an R factor around an R16, R17. Our exterior walls are R35. Our roof is an R50. And that means you've got an envelope that's very secure and very energy efficient. Magnesium oxide is an inorganic element, so it won't grow mold or mildew. Termites and boring insects don't like it. It's fire retardant and it's water resistant. We can't say it's fireproof, but it's pretty fire resistant. It does not burn. So with SIPs, faster construction, we can literally put a 1,200 square foot house under roof in about a week from a finished slab. You have fewer subs because when you put that panel up, your interior wall, your exterior wall, your insulation are all there. You reduce site waste. We get an over 200-mile-an-hour wind resistance, so putting that in a hurricane zone or whatever really is helpful. And you have lower total cost. All the studies we've seen says that your labor cost on a house using structural insulated panels for the exterior and the roof will save you about 50% in labor cost over what you would do with a traditional stick-built approach. So here's just a few sample homes that have been done with SIPs. So I think you can see that look and feel, we're not, we're not a funky looking box. We can give you any kind of facade you want, any kind of design you want, any kind of size you want. And everything can, we have some standard models, but anything can be cut to fit to your particular plan. So what we're seeing is that insulated panels, structural insulated panels with MgO is an innovation, I think, that's coming to the market in a big way. And we're looking to be the first tenant in Greg's facility in Jacksonville. We're working right now to put plans together for the renovation of a 30,000 square foot building there, and hope to get moved in there and in production by the end of the year. We like the location with the port and with the transportation out with I-10, I-75, I-95. It gives us much better distribution than where we are currently in Alabama. So happy to entertain any questions about panelization, but it's a way to speed up construction, reduce cost, and get a better product from an energy efficiency point of view, from a wind, fire, and water point of view, and you just get a better product.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Bill and I, we were in Jacksonville yesterday, and I got to tell you, the city of Jacksonville is very excited about this product. They're going to be the first SIP manufacturer in Northeast Florida, and the level of interest is huge, from infill housing to all the way up to multifamily and even commercial use. So there's some really cool aspects of this. One of the things that I really like about the using it as a roof is you don't need the trusses. And there's some massive savings along the way, depending on the design, obviously. But Bill, thank you very much. What I thought I'd do is go on a little bit more. I want to show you a quick video, and this relates to our post-disaster housing. And there we go. This is a prototype that we recently built that's for post-disaster housing. Hopefully you can hear the volume. While you're watching this, don't just think about post-disaster housing. Think about transitional housing for the homeless. Think about ADUs. This is a high cube container. The ceilings are 9.5 feet. Once you put your ceiling and insulation in it, you have higher than an 8-foot ceiling. 320 square feet is one unit. And so that's pretty much that. So um, that is another aspect of what we're going to be doing at the site. So what I want to do is give you a little overview of our the conceptual layout. As Bill was speaking earlier, they're going to be located in that 33,000 square foot building. If you see down towards the front, you'll see the gator. What I'm so excited about this whole concept is that we are going to have a research center here, and University of Florida will be the first, and we're looking for a couple more universities, local colleges. We'll be also working with Duval County schools um, in our research center and office space there. So we have a rail spur that comes in from CSX, so we can receive materials very cost effective. If you can buy building materials by rail, your savings on transportation are huge. And then if you can ship out by rail, that's huge also. So the SIPS panels can be shipped out by rail. They can be put on Crowley ships or other ships and sent to the Caribbean, other parts of the country, and around the world. So logistically, it's perfect. We're looking to uh, the phase two will be us getting our 41,000 square foot building up and running, and then we have that 5-acre site where we could put up a metal building relatively quickly. All we need is money, right? So, but we're excited that you know by the end of this year, hopefully, we'll be manufacturing some products with the folks from SIPS. So again, the research center is something that Supreme Insulated Panels is going to be able to use. It's something that the manufacturers of the container housing are going to be able to use. And what I wanted to say here is, I've mentioned collaboration a few times, and it's that we're a huge believer in public-private partnerships. So the manufacturers that are going to be in here are for profits. They're just going to be able to get the site at a very good rate, and they're going to be able to utilize the research center. And so where we have young creative minds that are working at ways to find ways to improve assembly line production, or looking at different materials that can be utilized that are from around the country or the world that might be able to improve the quality and improve the pricing. going to be continually looking at that. So all manufacturers involved with this location will have that access to to the um, to the research center. And our ultimate goal with all of this is that um, we can get this replicated and we can share this information with other nonprofits around the country. And we could just imagine if we've got a few of these type of sites where you've got community collaborating partners, you got a few different manufacturers, and now you have maybe 8 to 10 universities that are looking at ways of sharing ideas and working together to build truly affordable housing. Now you got something really cool. So we're excited about it. We're pumped, and we're looking forward to producing some product here soon. So anyway, that's my contact information. If anybody wants to reach out to me, we are looking for another manufacturer, innovative manufacturer that can work together with the other manufacturers that are there. So anyway, Raquel, Chris, thank you again. Really appreciate the opportunity to present.
Thank you so much, Craig and Bill. I am always blown away by the innovation of factory-built housing, and I can share with you when Craig and I first, well, at least when you shared with me, what you were planning with container housing, I was like, container housing, and I just couldn't see it in my mind. And then
Yeah.
working with the architects at UF and showing me what you were able to do, I was just personally blown away. And I think as more and more of these options become available to families and individuals, we start to see that sea change. So I do have a couple questions, but let me also just see, for those of you who have been able to listen in, if this resonates with you or if you have questions, please let us know. We've got the Q&A feature up. For some reason it wasn't showing before, but it is now up, and also the chat feature. Feel free to drop a question in there for us. But and Chris as well, if you've got any questions. But I'll start off by a quick question, Craig, and it kind of goes back to this sense of a sea change, like how individual consumers are looking at factory built housing solutions. And when you are talking about, of course, the housing research facility, I'm also thinking about, so what happens to prototypes? Like, how do you show folks prototypes so they get a feel? Bill, for your homes that you showed us, like, how do folks get to walk through models right now? And can you share a little bit more about that?
No, that's a great question. We actually have a location on the site where we are going to build models. So we're going to have an area where each of the manufacturers can put their models down so people can come and walk through them and get a good feel for them.
So also, Raquel, we're in our discussions with the city and them wanting to build this, work with us to build this first unit in Jacksonville. The idea is that we leave that unit as a model for like 4 to 6 months, that we can bring people through it before we actually sell it. And I think what we have experienced is, and I've worked with a couple of builders who say, I can build the same house that my competitor's building, on the same block, and I can build it cheaper, and I can get a 10 to 15% price benefit because it's green, because of the energy efficiency. I mean, we've got people in a 1,200 square foot house whose utility bill is $40 a month because the envelope is so tight and it's so insulated that and on the front end, a 1,200 square foot house typically would get a 2.5 ton air conditioning system. We found with this system, we only need a 1.5 tons. So you're saving a few $100, $1,000 just on the construction cost, because you don't need as big an HVAC system as you would in a typical house built another way. So there are all those benefits that become real sales features when you stack it up against a conventional approach. And
Bill, Yeah, Bill, that is really, really helpful context to sort of get that picture of the continued value add. And I love the point that the term that you structured with the city of Jacksonville to actually have this up as something of a showcase. It pretty squarely relates to one of the questions that came through. Just wanted to get a sense of what that life expectancy really is for these the container housing. And then how do you prevent against, or does it prevent against prevention of oxidization and rust?
I'll leave that one to Greg.
Yeah, so it's basically the shipping containers are made out of Corten steel.
Mhm.
So they're meant to have a light surface rust that kind of protects the the structural steel. So very rarely are you going to ever see a container where the steel is rusted through. So put on a very good primer, you maintain it, you just maintain it like a home, and that unit could last a couple hundred years. The
Oh,
steel,
wow.
the steel for these homes will pretty much last forever. You there's maintenance like with your regular homes.
Hmm. I love the way also your visual reflects the way that the post-disaster housing, the container homes really seem to borrow from the whole tiny home movement, right?
Yeah.
That idea of living rooms converting into a bedroom, usage of things like Murphy beds and what have you. Tell me, to what extent are they self-contained? Meaning, do they rely on traditional sewer hookups, electrical connections, that kind of thing?
Yes, they do. They do. Absolutely. And so for post disaster, they can also be installed and and typically what cities and counties do is they set aside campgrounds and other places where you have that type of hookup. And then also mobile home parks where they've lost the mobile homes, you can then put them very easily in there, and that's typically how it's done. But you can also run them by solar energy, and there's ways that you can take those and you can take 15 or 20 and run a group of 15 or 20 off of solar energy. So we can, we can get really creative with them.
That's exciting.
There's another
Thank you.
question that came in. This is on the Q&A. Mike Nasso, thanks for asking. Apologies if I missed this, but related to the homes shown previously that were constructed using SIPs, what are the expected savings compared to building traditional stick-built homes? Bill, do you want to take that?
We're finding that the total cost of stick built versus panelization, we probably are going to save somewhere between 10 and 15% on total cost. The other thing I think we've got to be aware of is that when we're talking about affordability, and HUD's 30% of your income for your housing cost includes your utility cost. And if you can reduce that utility bill
Right.
in half, you have improved your affordability piece over and above what you can do with the savings on the actual construction. The construction cost really are a function of design. And if you can design for use of the panels, I'll give you an example. Panels are 4 feet wide, right? And if I've got a house that's 36 feet long, that's 9 panels. If I've got a house that's 37 feet long, that's 10 panels and labor to cut a panel down to a foot. So designing for the 4-foot panelization framework, like we recommend using 4-foot horizontal slider windows because they fit in that 4-foot panel. If you put a standard 3x5 double hung window in, I'm trimming panels again to make the window fit. So if you're really designing for affordability, there are things you can do in the design piece that will reduce those costs. And as Craig said, if you can design in such a way that you can support a ridge beam the length of the house with a gable roof and you don't need trusses, I just saved several $1,000s in wood cost. So it really all starts with the design of the building. and designing for affordability is and panelization is where it has to begin if you really are looking to get a quality product and reduce your overall cost.
You know, when we first looked at this factory aspect, we spoke to a lot of GCs, and one of the things that we heard a lot of was they're sick and tired of the waste of site built. And I've walked many sites with GCs, and they've shown me these massive dumpsters that they're filling up with product that they paid for, that they paid to have cut up, and that they're paying for the dumpster, they're paying for the storage, then they're paying to deliver a product that they already paid for. And that is just one small piece of how you can truly save by factory built.
No, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Raquel, I'll take a couple questions here. K Mosier writes a pair of questions. First off, it was her understanding that the center is not yet producing modular or container housing products. Maybe a
Correct.
different way of putting that is when do you see that coming online? And then also writes, I assume the container or even SIP-built homes can be fitted with ductless mini split HVAC. Is that accurate?
Big believer in ductless mini splits. Big believer in them. They're being utilized around the world incredibly effectively. I mean, I visited my uncle in Amsterdam in a 20-story building that was all mini split ductless. So, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
The timing, right? You're not
Oh,
actually
the
producing these
timing.
yet.
Yes. So yes, we're not producing right now. We hope that SIPs will be producing by the end of this year, and then on the container piece, we have a partner who I can't share with right now, but that has experience in working with shipping containers for many, many years and has the capacity to start with them immediately. So if we were to get an order, they then would expand their operation to Jacksonville. But they have a facility that can begin producing immediately. Well, within, 30 to 60 days with an order, right?
Wow.
Well, but Chris, we are in production now, and we have a plant in Alabama.
That's right. That's right.
We're delivering panels today. Our goal is to get relocated to Jacksonville by the end of the year, but we have two lines right now where we're producing panels, and the plan is to keep one line running in Alabama until we get a line up and running in Jacksonville, and then once that's up and running, we'll shut the second line down and move it over to Jax as well. Yep. So we're in production. We're going to stay in production, and we can deliver a house. We can deliver basically a house a week from our current facility.
Exciting.
Another question that has come in, and this is one that I had as well, and that is from Bob Corwin. Thank you for your question, Bob. Will banks give a mortgage for these homes? So kind of like the financing and comparables that are used, right, throughout the lending process. If you can speak to that, Craig or Bill.
I'll speak to it on the container piece, and Bill, I'll let you do it on the SIP side. I would say 10 years ago, that was a bit of a challenge on the container piece. Not today. Not today. The container homes have been built around the country. They're in every state. There's some beautiful homes, and they're accepted. They're accepted by major lenders, and so it isn't going to be a problem now. Years ago it was, but yeah, we're not finding it as a problem at this point in time. And there could be some nice savings on your homeowner's insurance as well.
Yeah, and the insurance thing also plays in on the MGO SIPs, because
Right.
From an insurance rating point of view, our SIP home is a concrete home because the MGO is a concrete board, so it gets rated as if it were a concrete house. And we've had no issues at all with any kind of financing, because it actually qualifies as a site-built home. Because we're not bringing a module together and sitting it down that was built in the factory. We're bringing parts to the place and assembling them on site.
And Bill, I meant to mention this earlier. I think the cool part about your product and the other products that are going to be coming out of our site, but especially your product, you're going to be employing local GCs,
Yeah.
and their teams. So
Yeah.
you're getting you're getting the walls and the roof up, but local GCs are going to be finishing it off.
Right.
Craig and Bill,
Yeah,
you're clearly triggering a lot of excitement. There's a number of other questions that have popped up in our chat and the Q&A. One from Dana Miller. I know you mentioned earlier about the expected lifespan, but sort of articulates as well that in Dana's community, most of the housing in our city was built between 1870 to 1950. Do you expect that the life of these homes would be similar, meaning 100, 150 years?
Yeah. Yeah. I can't speak to the panelized, but knowing that it's same material from the Great Wall of China, probably going to last a while. But on the container piece, and I'll speak to this very briefly. It ties into post-disaster, ties into FEMA, and it ties into state government. Every 18 months after a post-disaster, after a major storm or a fire or a tornado, FEMA sells the travel trailers and mobile homes. And the travel trailers are virtual pieces of junk. When you've got a family that's lived in it for 18 months, then it's just garbage. They sell for pennies on dollars the mobile homes. What we're saying to the federal government is stop doing that. We have a product that will last for storms after storm after storm. It ships on trucks. It's not a wide load. It stacks 2 high on rail. It stacks 9 high on ships. And we can pick it up. We can bring it back. Don't sell it. Bring it back to the factory. We'll repurpose it. We'll stage it for the next storm. And they're made out of steel. They have a steel roof. You can't lose your roof. If another hurricane comes through and you're in a mobile home or a travel trailer, and this happens a lot, believe it or not, in the Southeast, is you have the state, the government requires that you abandon your home. You don't have to with this because you're in a solid structure.
We've got a couple questions coming in the chat as well. This question from our very own Jennifer Hennemeth, regarding SIPs, would there be anticipated structural challenges with potential remodeling is number one, and is there an anticipated higher rate of depreciation on SIPs construction versus stick-built?
I don't know about the depreciation piece. I don't know that would be all that different. And I think that only would apply if you were in a rental business and you own the property and were depreciating it as a rental property. But I don't think the rate would be any different based on the construction technique. What we tend to recommend is that you use the SIP panels for the exterior wall and the roof, for the envelope. And then you do whatever you're going to do inside that envelope. With traditional, you build the walls and put drywall up and do whatever. So whatever you want to do rehab wise, you can do, because none of those, with the possible exception of a center wall holding the ridge beam, nothing else internal is structural. So you can move walls around any way you want to, as long as you don't impact the structure of the ridge beam that's holding the roof up. Does that make sense? So actually it gives you a lot more flexibility in rehab than what you would have in a traditional stick-built house, because you've got a lot more structural walls internally when you're dealing with that kind of structure.
A good envelope to work within.
It's the envelope.
Yeah.
And the envelope's what gets you the energy efficiency and a bunch of other stuff.
Sure. We've talked a lot about the Southeast. There was a question here, though, wondering how far nationally you're shipping SIPs at this point.
Right now, working with a group in Washington State, with a group in Waco, Texas, and we've been shipping panels to the Virgin Islands for the building of a new resort. So, wherever the truck or train goes, we can get you there.
Or ship, right?
There you go.
I'll take this next one. Raquel, we are certainly getting a lot of interest here. Who are you hoping to market to? General contractors, government planning agencies, NGOs?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Bill, go ahead. I can tell you want to say something. Go for it.
Well, from our side, I think what we find is one of the toughest groups to get to buy into innovation are builders, and trying to get home builders to change the way they do things is a major challenge.
Yeah.
So yes, that's a target market for us, and clearly getting people like, we're dealing with the city of Jacksonville. They're excited about it for a number of reasons. One, because we're planning on moving there, but they like the concept. They're looking at ways to be able to build more faster. And I think that's one of the things we've got to come to grips with in the affordable housing world is we got to build faster. But I think one of the things that I personally, having worked in a nonprofit housing organization for a number of years, I think there's the nonprofit housing group that's been doing acquisition, rehab, resale. They have the subs to do the mechanical systems, to do the interior drywall. They got their electrician, they got their HVAC people, they got their plumbers. Being able to come in and put a shell up that they can use their existing team to finish out the inside, do the painting, do whatever. There's an opportunity for people who have been doing acquisition, rehab, resale to actually get into the new construction business without it being a major shift for them. Because we've got a team that will come in and put the shell in place for you, and then you can do the rest of it. So I think that's another piece of the opportunity that we're going to try to get some nonprofits thinking differently about what their role may be in terms of new construction affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And we're actively looking at, we've got a project probably going into Jacksonville. Well, it's going into Jacksonville, assuming it moves forward. It's in permitting right now, but it's a 3-story multifamily that's all going to be done with SIPs. We can, with wood structure, we can go 4 stories. With light gauge steel, we can go 7 stories. So, you can put up a 3-story apartment building in a month or less. You're starting to get some real bang for your buck.
People are craving innovation. They are absolutely craving it, and they're willing to take that step, because if you're going to change, yeah, there's some risk in it, but people are willing to make that next step. They're just sick and tired of the pricing just continually going up, and so that's where we find that the city, the government is working with non-government agencies. They're working with developers. They're working with general contractors. We've got general contractors that are like, hey, help us. And if you can help us in any way, hallelujah. And the cities are like, hey, if we can connect you with this stakeholder and this stakeholder, and maybe together with this community group, we can build, this multifamily community, or this single family, or this rent to own community. And so it's everybody working together.
Wow.
Well, the city piece, one of the discussions with the city yesterday is, and the first house we're going to build there is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath.
Okay.
And we did some looking at, Zillow and whatever in Jacksonville. There are no 2-bedroom houses on the market. None. And he's pretty convinced that with the rent rates in Jacksonville, if you will, 2-bedroom apartment, $1,600 a month. You can build this 2-bedroom, 2-bath house with a mortgage in the $750, $800 a month range. There's going to be a market for that.
That's right.
And getting people to where they're building some equity, getting that generational wealth thing going,
That's
and
right.
getting them out of this high rent apartment business. And the apartment rents have just gone crazy in the last 4 or 5 years. The HUD rate in Jacksonville for a 2-bedroom for a Section 8 house is $1,300 a month. But if you could put $500 or $600 a month into something else and have a nicer place to live, and you're building equity, why wouldn't you? So he says, I want to test my theory. So we're going to try it and see. I don't think he's going to have a problem. I think we're going to have a waiting list for those houses once we get them done.
You've got, and that's a great point, Bill. You've got young professionals that are they're graduating from college. How are they going to afford a $350,000, $400,000, $500,000 home? Well, they can't. That's the answer. Off of $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 a year. So we've got to find a way to get these young professionals into housing so that they can start building wealth.
Incredible points. Fascinating conversation. We have one more question before we get into some of our policy updates. I'll take that one, Chris, and it comes from Dana again. Since I am new to the housing manufacturing industry, can either of you please shed some insight on the structural foundation of these factory-built homes, since they are made of steel in the event of a hurricane, fire, etc.? Do you think these homes work on the West Coast in California, for example, where I'm originally from, which experiences earthquakes, rising sea level, and soil erosion?
I'll start with that, Bill, and then I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
My daughter lives in California, and neighborhoods a half a mile from her home have burned down within hours, hundreds of homes. And then I go back 6 months later, and they're putting stick-built homes back up again. Stop doing that. Put up SIP panels, put up steel-framed homes, put up something that is fire resistant and that is less likely to collapse in hurricane with earthquakes. These products are ideal for California. They're ideal for the Midwest, for tornadoes. They're ideal for flooding. When you're looking at a SIP panel that is water resistant, my house flooded during Hurricane Katrina. We had to cut down during Hurricane Wilma, we had to cut down all the drywall, up 3.5 feet. Build a house where you don't have to do that. Have a steel frame. Have the containerized housing has a steel roof, so you're not going to lose your roof, so you're not going to lose your house. You have windstorm rated windows. So let's start building smarter. And California is a perfect market for this. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, we in Oregon, after some fires up there a couple of years ago, they partnered with the fire department, and they built 2 structures side by side. One was a stick-built structure with drywall and hardy siding, and the other was a SIP structure. They're sitting side by side. They loaded the insides of both of them with wood. They loaded wood on the outside of both of them, and they set all that wood on fire. And about 2 hours later, the stick built was a pile of ash, and the SIP built side had some carbon staining on it, but it was all still there.
Yeah.
And there's some media people around, and they're interviewing this lady, little old lady, and she said, "I don't know what that is, but I want to live on that side." So if you've got, if you've got an MGO roof on an MGO house, your vulnerability is the door and windows. Other than that, you're concrete, and concrete doesn't burn. And so we feel like that in that kind of an area. Now, from an earthquake point of view, it's all about the underlying foundational structure. And we have a new system that we're just introducing with heavy gauge steel, 6-inch square tube, like, a quarter-inch thick, that is the frame of the house with panels in between. And once you anchor that thing, and we're looking at it both in where you've got terrain problems, so you can set pilings and bring the steel tube up and set the frame on it, and also think about the coast. We're now in Florida. If you're within certain distance of the coast in flood zones, you've got to elevate 14 feet if you're building back. So being able to go up 14 feet with steel columns with a steel frame on top of it saves you a whole lot of money over how we're doing it currently with concrete pillars and concrete beams and whatever. Worked with a client down in Crystal River. He's elevated 14 feet for a 5,000 square foot, 3-story house. Before he put the floor joist on the first deck, he was $110,000 of concrete and steel into that infrastructure. We could have done it for about $35,000. So they're just huge savings in looking at some of the heavy gauge steel stuff where you have terrain problems or you have coastal problems, and you've got to do something different structurally.
What a fascinating conversation today. I've got more questions, but I know your numbers, so I'm going to call you. And anybody here who's attended today, please reach out to us. We'll get you in touch with Craig and Bill. But thanks for being here with us. We have a couple quick policy updates that Chris is going to run through for us, and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. I'll try and give it the express version, and then, as you say, close out. Again, Craig, Bill, thanks again. It was a pleasure having you on today's call. Yeah.
Thank you.
So first off, the Senate Finance Committee released its major tax proposal this week, including a package of tax and health policy changes that's currently moving through Congress. I know many in the NCST community have been tracking that along with us. And certainly our team at NCST has been keeping a close eye on the movement of both the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act and the New Markets Tax Credit. Overall, we view a big win for the New Markets Tax Credit program, which was permanently extended. The program, which was previously set to expire in 2025, will now carry forward to continue to help attract private investment to underserved areas by providing tax credits for community development projects. This extension is a huge win for long-term certainty for investors and nonprofits using New Markets Tax Credits in the needed stability in order to continue to plan for their projects. However, the original New Markets Tax Credit Extension Act also included adjusting the credit to account for inflation, which was not accepted into this package. We would still see it as beneficial for the strength and the long-term impact of the credit. On a less positive note, we were disappointed to see the Neighborhood Homes Investment Act missing from the tax bill. And as a reminder that this credit is designed to support the construction and rehab of affordable homes for ownership in disinvested communities, especially where the home values are too low to support private development, and still very much needed. Neighborhood Homes would fill a major gap by helping to close that appraisal gap in areas where the cost to build and renovate homes exceeds values. NHIA still has strong bipartisan support and could be added during the negotiations between the Senate and the House. We'll continue our advocacy for neighborhood homes and encourage folks to reach out to their members and stress the importance of this credit. The Senate, so with respect to timing, the Senate is aiming to vote on this bill before the July 4th holiday recess, and after that, the bill will go to the House for renegotiation, where more changes, including potentially adding neighborhood homes, can happen. Please reach out with any questions and check out the Neighborhood Homes website for more information. I'll drop that link in the chat feature. And to close out today's conversation, a big thanks again to Craig Vanderlaan and Bill Wilson. And of course, to you, our attendees, thank you all. Next month's CIB call is set for July 16th, third Wednesday of the month. We look forward to seeing you then. And on behalf of NCST, have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Here, bye-bye.